The Taurus PT-22 Poly. Let's check it out. Taurus was founded in 1924 and produced their first firearm in 1941. From what I understand, the company was founded by a couple of former Beretta engineers. They started importing firearms into the U.S. in 1956. Actually, at one point, they were owned pretty much by Smith & Wesson, but bought out by Bangor Punta. In 1981, they bought a Beretta manufacturing company that was producing a military contract for the Brazilian Army, and began to produce the PT-92 and 99, which is a direct copy of the Beretta 92, and then with a little bit of a different safety system. But those are excellent pistols. I have one, and to be honest, I think that's one of the best firearms that Taurus has ever made. One of the things about Taurus is it has not always had a stellar reputation. They make good quality firearms, but it just seems like sometimes their quality control can be hit or miss. But the great thing is they have a lifetime warranty, and that has really helped them over the years. But now they're manufacturing a lot of their firearms in the U.S., in Miami, Florida, and now in Bainbridge, Georgia. And just to be honest with you guys, the quality of Taurus has really upped its game. I have not always been a big fan of Taurus because it is a budget price firearm, and you know, the quality was okay. But over the past few years, Taurus has really made some excellent firearms. And this is the PT-22 Poly. They've been making the PT-22 for a number of years, and actually inspired very heavily by the Beretta Model 21. But one of the big things about the Taurus that is very similar to the Beretta little pocket pistols is it does have that little tip-up barrel system. Makes it really easy to load, and it's just a very small firearm. They come in 22 caliber, which is really subpar for self-defense, but a lot of people still carry these in their pocket. And we really appreciate the guys over at GunZoneDeals for sending the little PT-22 Poly and all their help with bringing guns to the channel. The Taurus PT-22 was released in 1991, and it was made in the USA right from the beginning. But the original models were made with an aluminum alloy frame, and this is a polymer frame, obviously the Poly. It comes with 8 in the magazine, 1 in the tube. And when I say tube, it goes right in this little barrel, and it tips up, just like the Beretta tip-ups. We're going to go ahead and make sure the gun's unloaded, have a magazine release on the side, and we have the 8-round magazine. Now, one of the things about the magazine, it does have a base plate that has a little bit of a lip. Not only that, it has these grooves on the side, so if you have any issues bringing your magazine out, you know, you can just pull that magazine, and it gives you a little bit of a ledge to be able to grab it. One thing about these magazines, though, is when you put them in, you got to make sure they pop. But again, it just really holds in solid once you do, but they don't really eject out. And so it's really nice to have those little ridges to be able to pull this out. And of course, they are all steel. But when it comes to the tip-up barrel, it makes it super easy to load. So you load 8 rounds in your magazine, put it in, drop a round in the chamber, you close it up, and then you're ready to go. And then you have 9 rounds of 22 in a very small little firearm. Now, one of the things about this firearm in particular is that it has this grip that's fairly wide. And, you know, it really, just tell you guys, it gives you a lot of grip. And for these really small pistols, that's just not the norm. But the grips are really well done. There's some texturing, but it's very light. This laser texturing on either side. There's a scallop here just to put your thumb. And of course, you know, on the other side, either right or left-handed. The grip does have a couple of bumps right here for finger grooves. And then there's no real texturing except for the laser texturing. But it is light. I mean, it's not really aggressive. But you don't need it because it's 22. And with those finger grooves, it even gives you a little more of a grip on the firearm. Now they have changed the serrations on the slide, and these are more of a crisscross or fish scale pattern. The originals just had the lines. The sights are very minimal, but that's what they're made for. But you know, it's just a little small fixed sight, no big deal. The barrel is 2.8 inches, and then again, this little lever, it just pops it up, and then you can see where it locks down. Now there's no extractor. So it really relies on the pressure of the round to throw the brass out. Have a small little feed ramp right here, and of course we've shot the fire out of this thing, so it's a little bit dirty. But that is one thing that when you drop a round in, I mean, there's nothing that's actually going to pull that out except the gases. And one issue with that is that if you get a dud round, again, of course you can use second strike capability to be able to hit that again. But you're going to have to extract that with a fingertip or a fingernail right here. And so it does kind of fall out, but with 22, you know, it does have a little bit of a lubrication on it sometimes, so that can make it a little more difficult. And now because the PT22, you know, you just pop it up and you can load your round in it. You can load it directly with the slide, making sure the safety's off. But if you do, it takes a little bit of strength to be able to get this back. In fact, I have seen on the on the internet, of course that figures, that some guys couldn't even pull the slide back. Well, I say get you some of those grips, you know, and get some hand strength. But it is tough to pull back, and especially those with weaker hand strength. That's where the tip-up barrel is going to be perfect. But it does take some dexterity and some strength to be able to pull that back. And I think the more you do it and you realize how much strength it does take to pull it back, it makes it easier. But of course, with the tip-up barrel, it just makes it really easy for those with weaker hand strength to drop a round in there, close it up, and you know, you're good to go. It does have a frame safety right here, and it does, of course, your mag release is here. And on the Beretta Model 21, it's down here at the grip, down at the bottom. And so that's more of a, you know, European style. But here we have it right here where, you know, us Americans typically like that. And guys, most of Taurus's firearms right now are being made in the U.S. And this one in particular was made in Miami, Florida. The trigger guard is rounded off. It's a very rounded off pistol all in itself. I mean, it's pretty much very smooth and just very snag free. The beaver tail is going to help, especially for those with larger hands, because, you know, there is a possibility of slide bite if you have meaty hands. I didn't have any problems with it, and it does give you a pretty high ride up onto the slide, so it's, again, a low bore axis. There's no last round hold open after the last shot. And then one thing too, if you drop the magazine, there is a magazine disconnect safety, so you're not going to be able to fire it. And of course, with it in, now you don't want to dry fire these, but I'm going to drop in that snap cap again and close it down. One of the things though about this particular pistol is that it's double action only. There's no hammer, there's no spur here. And so you're not going to be able to fire this single action. In fact, every shot is going to be double action. And so it's a very heavy trigger pull all the way through, and then the break. But one of the things about this trigger is that it is super smooth. And I mean, there is no grit, no hesitation, just all the way through from beginning to end. It's really smooth. Now it does have a very unusual geometry. It comes straight down, kind of like a flat face, but then it curves to be able to make sure you have that trigger in your finger. But as you can see, I mean, it's heavy, and then the hammer recesses back every time. Now we have our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. Let's see if we can get a reading. Yeah, 8 pounds, 4.9 ounces. Honestly, that's not too bad. A lot of these have like 10-pound trigger pulls. Now, bringing out one of my very favorite mouse guns, we just did a review on the Enox model, which is the stainless steel. This is one of the originals. This is an old one. But the Beretta Model 21, they were producing these down in Brazil. In fact, the Model 20 was produced down in Brazil. Taurus made a couple of earlier pocket-type pistols. One was the PT-51, very similar to the Beretta 950, which is the single-action model of this. And then they made the PT-55. I don't think they were ever imported into the United States, and there are a few here and there you can find, but it's pretty rare. But they are made very close to the Beretta Model 21A and the Beretta 950. And then Taurus came out and just went really, even though the design is very similar, they just took a lot of things and brought it to another level. It's definitely a bigger gun, but really the grips on the Beretta are fairly thick, but they are full size on the Taurus. Of course, then going with the polymer frame here, this makes it very light and easy. Now, it's about 5 inches in length. It's 4.3 inches in height, and it's about 1.1 inches in width. So it's a little wide for a small little firearm. But again, it just slips down in your pocket. There's a number of different holster options out there, but a lot of these would go more with a sticky holster just to slip in your pocket, not necessarily a belt holster. Weight on the Taurus Poly, 11.4 ounces. Weight on the Beretta Model 21A, 12.2 ounces. So even though it seems to be a little bit of a larger gun, it weighs less. On the original PT-22s, they did make a number of different grip sets for aftermarket grips, but they had screw holes here that you could put 2 screws in. Here, there is a place at the back, right here under the magazine, in the grip, and you can unscrew that, and it brings the grip off. I haven't taken this grip off, but one of the things about this is the recoil levers are actually underneath the grips. Obviously, when we tip up the barrel, there's no recoil spring mechanism here. It's actually underneath the slide right here. And again, we'll be able to see that better when we break it down. Now, you're going to notice that this little lever is popped forward. And I noticed that when I was doing some of my range shooting. One of the things that this does is it gets, at least for this one model, is, you know, if you don't push it all the way, it pops back, snaps back really easily. But if you go too far, like this, it tends to catch. And I think that will work itself out over time, because see, I'm going all the way out now and it's not doing it. But that's one thing that I found personally just with this firearm, that sometimes when I was bringing it down and I had it, now I can't even make it do it, there it goes. It won't close the barrel until you pop this. Not really a big deal. I mean, you get used to doing it actually, which I did. Now, it does come with a couple of keys in your box, and that has to do with the lock mechanism back here on the back, which a lot of people like to affectionately call the Hillary hole. And if you take this, you can turn it, lock down your action, especially if you're going to store this for a long time, or you want something where, you know, you have kids around and you just want to make this inoperable. That'll do it. One thing you don't want to do is to have your tip-up barrel up when you lock this down, because it can damage the firearm, according to the manual. Also, you don't want to have a magazine loaded, obviously, when you do that. Now, even though I am not a fan at all of those, they do offer 2 keys, which you typically don't see. Usually you just see it one, you know, lock set, and so this gives you 2 in case you lose one. And they also include an Allen wrench, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure what that does, but there it is. And when it comes to ammunition, high velocity ammunition is what you need, because these can be a little finicky. In fact, the Berettas are the same way. You know, you need some high velocity ammunition around 1250, you know, up to 1300 feet per second, and that really helps this gun feed reliably. And also it helps to eject the brass, and so that's a couple of things that you need to just be aware of. But you don't need to use hyper velocity ammunition. Stingers and, you know, really higher velocity ammo can damage the firearm. It states in the manual you shouldn't use that. But honestly, these little Fiocchi copper wash 40 grain bullets, these are high velocity. They ran just beautifully out of this firearm. Really appreciate Fiocchi for sponsoring the ammo, all made in the USA. Their 22 long rifle is excellent, copper washed 40 grain bullet. This is very similar to your CCI Mini Mags high velocity. They just function very well. Now over the years, the PT-22 has not been the most reliable. They're very small, and then you have rimfire, which can be finicky at best. And these little small pistols, a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of dynamics that need to be right to make these reliable. One thing about the Poly, and again, this is their latest version, this was a very reliable firearm at the range. Very easy to shoot. Of course, I love taking these little 22s out with the low recoil, the low muzzle blast, cheap ammunition, great for first-time shooters. I mean, it's just a lot of fun to have one of these around just to do some plinking. But with this little firearm, I mean, it just ran. We shot about 300 rounds through it, no problems. We were shooting Fiocchi, the 40 grain copper wash bullets. That's excellent ammunition for about 1,250 feet per second. Very similar to the CCI Minimax. But there's something about just shooting these little firearms. They just run. There's no recoil at all. The one thing about the PT-22 though is because it is double action only. It's a pretty stiff trigger pull. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And you know, when you're pulling that trigger back, especially when you're shooting rapid fire, you really have to think about releasing that reset. You know, you got to let that trigger go all the way out, and a lot of times it would catch me when I was shooting fast. But overall, as long as I'm just releasing that trigger, you know, it would fire, and never had any malfunctions, except just it was my malfunction for not releasing the reset. Very low in the hand, very small, but yet with that grip, it's just a large grip, and so it's like shooting a much larger firearm with very little recoil. Again, guys, I love mouse guns. I've shot tons of different ones. I own a number of mouse guns. In fact, I have a little bit of a fetish for them. But a lot of them can be really tiny, really small. And the grip is really small. And especially if you have larger hands. I mean, I have medium-sized hands. This gives you a lot to grip. And then with that little pinky extension with the magazine. Guys, it's just a great feeling little handgun. Now for disassembly, actually it's pretty easy. Drop your magazine. We're going to go ahead and pop our tip-up barrel up, check to make sure it's unloaded, plus then just pull it on out. Now with the Beretta Model 21A and the 950, because it's single action, when you can pull the hammer back. With this, it's double action only, so you've got pressure resting. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring our slide back, and I'm going to show you, and when we do, we're going to try to lift up the front. And so I'm going to bring it back, and I'm behind the camera here, so it's a little tough. There it goes. Up it goes. Now, this is resting right here on these rails here at the back. And then the front of the slide is resting right here on these two little levers. And those levers actually correspond right here. But once you get that down, I mean, it's really fast actually to disassemble. With that spring forcing it down, it just makes it a little more difficult. And again, behind the camera, it makes it a lot more difficult. For reassembly, it's really easy. Just take and go under your slide rails with the front of the slide up just a little bit and just lock it down. That's it. And then we're going to pop that in and we're ready. And again, you've got that magazine disconnect, so you need to make sure that it is right. All right, guys, let's talk about pros and cons of the PT-22. First off, I just want to again address that self-defense with a 22 is marginal at best. 22 can be a lethal option. I mean, it can and it does. It just takes longer to stop a threat. And so 22 is typically frowned upon for self-defense. But again, there are a lot of people out there, they're just not going to carry anything more potent ballistically. And again, this is better than nothing. But to me, this makes a great backup for self-defense, whether it's in an ankle holster, it could be just slipped into your pocket, and make it really easy to be able to get to. It's very minimal, it's very small. And so those are some good things about it, and really that's why they were designed, just a very small option. But obviously we've got 380s that are about the same size. You take a Ruger LCP, for instance, it's not any different than this. And you've got more self-defense capability. And so, it's up to the individual, obviously. It's a very reasonable priced firearm, and of course with the polymer frame, it makes it a super lightweight choice to carry. The grips are full size. I mean, they are great because, you just feel like you've got a full size grip on a very small pistol. And so that's a plus, and yet it can be a con if you want something smaller. You may be willing to sacrifice grip to have something smaller in your pocket. The double action trigger pull, I mean, while it is heavy, it's definitely doable. And, but it's going to have that full shot. You got to make sure that you release the reset when you fire the next round. And so that is one thing, again, just making sure that you're honestly slapping that trigger. And that's fine, especially in a self-defense situation. And from what I've seen, these have been very reliable. This one was very reliable. And one of the biggest pluses to me, though, is the price. And that's one of the things that Taurus has really excelled in. They produce good quality firearms while yet a very reasonable price. These, I think, retail for $260.62. And you can check out the prices on GunZoneDeals. But, they run very reasonably. And one of the things about something like this is that, it's half the price of your Beretta 21. And so, but of course, the quality of the Beretta is unsurpassed. I mean, this is not even close, but yet, again, it's half the price. And so if you're looking for something just fun to take out to the range, that's great. If you're on a serious budget, this would also be another option. And again, one of the reasons why Taurus is so popular. And two, they have their limited lifetime warranty. Now again, Taurus has had their issues, but I really think that Taurus is on the way up. A lot of good quality. All the firearms that we have reviewed over the past 5 years with Taurus have been just great experiences. I've really enjoyed getting out with their firearms. And not only would I recommend this to someone looking for more of a budget firearm, I would recommend different Taurus firearms because they're just really up in their quality. And whether you're just on a budget or, you just like to buy different firearms and, that can get expensive. Taurus makes a great option. And they have so many different choices. With the PT22 Poly, it's just a small little 22. It's a lot of fun. You can throw this in your pocket and it just makes a great backup. And guys, if you are totally recoil sensitive, or you have a wife or your grandmother that just will not shoot anything but something small, this is a great option and it's better than nothing. Am I recommending 22 for self-defense? No, it's not good for self-defense, but it's capable of self-defense. While 22 is not the best, like I always say, better than a sharp stick, and I'd rather be shot at and missed with a 44 Magnum than shot at and hit with a 22. And guys, we really appreciate GunZoneDeals for supplying us with firearms and being able to bring to you guys all kind of different stuff. Rubber Dummies is one of the best training tools on the market, and you get a 10% discount using Suit00 when you click the link down in the description. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. Taurus PT22 Poly. Let's check it out. Check it. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? The advent of the 380s, I don't want to do that. And honestly, now I'm going to tear my camera up. Really small package, and just in case you're... I don't want to say all that bull crap. Now again, bringing out the Beretta. Okay, the Beretta. This is the Beretta. It's Bravo is what it is. This thing's awesome. I mean, obviously, when you pop this up, whoops. First thing you're going to do, of course, the Taurus PT22, the mini bull. But now they've been, here comes Brock going 90. Brock, you're going 90.